So I guess some of the thoughts are, yes, I believe electric cars are the future. I think Tesla's leading the way. I think Elon's doing a lot of good things. But also, I think there are a lot of issues with this car. I think it's really overpriced. I mean, not for bill of materials, like it's expensive because of the batteries, but the issues of being a new technology, it's overpriced for the end result, for what it is. And what I'm really excited about is when we get to no compromise electric cars. Because the thing is, right now, every electric car has compromises, some more significant than others. They're getting better, but they're still there. Even with the newer Teslas, there's significant compromises that has to do with range, charging time, lack of charging stations, etc. For sure, that's all gonna get better, and I'm excited to see that it does. But sometimes you have to ask yourself, what are the trade-offs? And so what makes a car a good experience and a good product? And that's a lot of the lens that I wanna think of this through, is like as an experienced designer. And how could you make this a better product? The other thing I do wanna talk about is, it's a little frustrating now being a Tesla customer, is realizing that like Elon lies to you. Like he lies to everyone with the tweets, with the back and forth. He's about selling cars. And I do think he's a visionary, I think he's doing great things, but it's also very frustrating as a customer, and it hurts the loyalty thought. And so there's just certain things that they skip on, that they hide about, they don't talk about. And so, well, I'm glad that Tesla's successful because it's ultimately better for like the world and the car industry. Sometimes I'm amazed that these cars sold. I mean, especially when you look at the early 2012 Tesla and like the seats and the bad interior quality, and I mean, it's a 6-figure car and like people bought these things. It kind of blows the mind. So compared to, because if you are familiar with luxury cars and you drive like BMWs and Porsches and Mercedes, there really is a quality gap on some of the experience level things. Some of it is insignificant, but it's the intangibles. Some of it is quite significant. We'll talk about that. What I will say though, and what impresses me about Elon and Tesla, is they created a blue ocean strategy for themselves. So they were able to excel in areas where traditional car companies were really weak. And I think that created a hype and an allure. And I think that was very intentional, and it was good strategy, it was smart. So as an example, it's gonna be hard for them to compete with like the noise reduction in a Mercedes or the seats of a BMW. And so Tesla knew that, Elon knew, I mean, of course they knew that. So what did they do? They put a giant screen in the dash, right? A 17-inch laptop screen. Why? No, you don't need, I mean, it's excessive, it's insane, it's crazy. But then everyone's just staring at the screen. They don't care about the seats. They forget the squeaky, interior thing that, and so that's actually pretty clever, and it worked pretty well. But what is it when you live in the car and then the screen is no longer so interesting and so captivating, you do start noticing the other things. And if you're in a cheaper car, that'd be fine. You'd still be like, whatever. But when you've paid sort of this kind of price and this kind of money, it starts to be a little frustrating. And so if you start thinking about, do I want to renew the lease? Do I want to get another Tesla? There's a little more second guessing. Finally, the thing that Elon is not at all clear about, Tesla is not clear about, is how fast the technology is changing. And so there's a lot of talk about, oh, the Model 3 could be an appreciating asset with self-driving and things like that, or, oh, it's such a good value, these cars, they retain their resale value. And that's like a blatant lie. Like, they just don't, and they will not. And let me tell you why. So yeah, for the first couple of years, the Model S did retain its value really well, and more so than gasoline cars, because the electric drivetrain is going to last longer and all of that. But then what happened is the Model 3 came out, right? So now all of a sudden you have a car that goes farther, upwards of 50% farther, and costs half as much, significantly less, right? So who's gonna wanna buy the old Model S, right? If the old Model S, the interior's, not great, doesn't make it significantly more premium, but the specs that really matter now are suddenly so out of date. Well, that resale value is going to hurt. And so I've already seen that in the 3 years of this 2017 Model S. Yeah, the first 2 years it kept its value really well, and then once the Model 3 became commonplace, very cheap, the resale value just tanked. I mean, it's less than half of what the car cost new. So, and when you look at the Raven Model S's that cost less and go 100 miles more, things like that, it becomes a pretty hard sell for this car. And so for anyone buying these cars, you really got to think twice about what Elon is telling you. Self-driving also, it's going to happen for sure. I'm a believer in that, but not anywhere close to his time frame. And I've come around, I've changed my mind on this, but talking with more engineers, talking with machine learning experts, and analyzing sort of the stuff, it becomes clear that it is going to be a little bit longer, because what happens is, yeah, you get exponential improvement, and you get a lot. You get about 80% there, and we're doing the groundwork, right? There's going to be the surge, which is exciting, but then for that last 20% that you need, so you don't kill somebody, as an example, so the car can really be driving itself and handle all these edge cases, that's actually going to be really difficult and take a really long time. So I think the driving assistance package will continue to improve, and that's a great thing. But the idea of the robo-taxis and cars just picking up people and making you money, I think we're very far off. I'd say 5 years at least. Yeah, so what happens with this car is it really becomes an iPhone situation where they're changing. Yes, they're better than a traditional phone and they have all these new features and all these new things, but they're changing so fast, right? So then this is where actually a friend pointed out, well, it's not really an iPhone situation, it's an Apple Watch situation. Because the problem with a car, unlike a phone that you've sort of gotten used to replacing quite rapidly, you can't replace a car rapidly. I mean, it's financially not feasible. At the very least, if you can afford it, it's not wise. And so all of a sudden you're asking people to sort of pay through this pace of innovation, which is what Apple tried to do with this luxury watch band that everyone knew. You know, they try to tell people, oh, it won't be out of date, but sure enough, when the next year came out, the first one was completely out of date. And 3-4 years later, I mean, the first generation Apple Watch is barely functional. And when you look at the Tesla, you look at an early Model S, it's the same. So I guess to wrap up, you know, I still love this car. It's a super cool car. I mean, particularly when I first got it, it was just so cool. Everything about it, right? And some of that you just get used to, and so then it's not as exciting or whatever, even though there's still good things. Some of it you realize maybe not as important, or the other things aren't so good, you know, kind of wear on you. So it's funny because I'm driving a 11-year-old BMW now, a 2009, and yeah, the gasoline motor feels like this clunky thing from an era of the past, but there's actually other things about the 11-year-old car that I like better, that it's actually still better because BMW's been making cars for so long. For example, on the highway, and I use the Apple Watch to do decibel readings, the 11-year-old BMW is quieter on the highway. So Tesla really needs to improve the way they isolate the cabin and get rid of road noise. And no, it doesn't have to do with there's no engine noise. Marketers will try to tell you it's just louder because the cabin is just not very well sealed, particularly through the ground. I noticed that the windows are pretty good. You don't hear a lot of wind noise, but the road noise is amazingly bad in this car. So yeah, I'm excited for the future. I'm excited for Teslas to get better. I'm excited for other car companies to make electric cars. And there will be an inflection point where electric cars will be better in every way, where there will be no compromise. I'm excited for that, but we are not there yet. There have been a lot of compromises in my experience using this car. And you know, some of it's fun, you just get used to charging or whatever. But then when you step back and it's 11 o'clock and you're sitting at parking lot, supercharging, and you're like, wow, this kind of sucks. So yeah, I'm excited for these things to improve, and we'll get into more details about this video. And thanks for watching. Well, kind of a sad day. I'm returning the Tesla today. So, a little dirty. But yeah, it's been a fun time. Remember, your cat doesn't give a flying, well, you know what car you drive. He's gonna walk all over that shit. Doesn't even care. Yep, doesn't even care. He just wants you to feed him. Hi, Raz. How's it going? You want to go in the house? Tired of waiting? Hey, Raz. Want to go in the house? What was that? You're mad at me, aren't you? Yeah, okay. It's time.